do beach horse riding out in Clifton here and stuff like that. You'd have to have it organised now. Is there anywhere on? Well, you can try and book it at the K Club, somewhere like that, for the weekend, for Monday, and have it Monday evening, or you could stay back Monday and do it. There's lots of options in a lot of these places. There's falconry, and there's golfing, and there's shooting, and there's fishing, and horse riding. Now, it's quite expensive to do it at these places, but it can be organised, put it that way.
Oh, there's a little coffee truck.
Yeah. Whereas here, you're right beside him. And you can form a little circle around him, or half circle, and see what he does.
Very rough. It's the first one was a rough start.
Wow. Gosh, that's so cool. Oh,
Isn't it something?
Wait a minute, you just did that whole thing just now?
Yep, we did.
that's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's so cool.
That's
And
unbelievable.
you could tell when he was turning it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
You want to hold it, you want to hold it. Sweat. Sweat now.
Look at the crown, boy, that's great.
No, the water is up. So,
How many pieces is it though?
It's in three. There's one
Just
here,
one, two,
here,
three.
and yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, there. If you have the space for something like that, you would. It's a fantastic
I
piece.
just looked at it and I thought, well, this can't be.
Yeah, the
one
gentleman
piece.
that wanted to get it had a space in his home, which is kind of like an alcove with a kind of an arch top. And he said that would fit perfectly there.
Yeah,
So
catch
he's
the
left
other
his
rays.
details and everything. He said if you decide to sell it, let me know. And we'll see if we have time again to make one. You see, it's 16 weeks work. So you're taking a guy out of a very small team of craftsmen that we have to
Spend all that
concentrate on
time
doing
on
something
that.
like this, which is really not feasible for us to do. Now, as I said, if he had come during lockdown, we could have made another one because we had loads of time, nobody visiting, no online sales because everything was shut down for about a year and a half. So we could have done something at that time maybe for him, but unfortunately it was only last year he was interested. But we will work on one at some stage, maybe do it in 3 sections over a winter time or something like that. But, yeah.
To give you an idea what the thatch looks like, that was the roof covering of choice. It was the most available one down through the years in the late 1800s and up into the early 1900s. Most houses, especially the little cottages, were covered in thatch. You see how thick it is. The like of that there now would be for show, sort of, so that would have insulation and all sorts of things underneath it, whereas traditionally the cottages, when they were thatched, if you went into that cottage, you were looking up at the thatch. There was no ceilings. It was kind of caught in the same, you know. This town is Ard. Gateway to Connemara, they call it Ard. Try saying that with a few pints and a new set of teeth. Ard. We'll be coming back this way later on.
Beautiful.
Difference in the landscape of raised bog and blanket bog is very different. You see, where the raised bog was being cut by pouring them on it, long, flat, brown fields, kind of. Some people call them chocolate fields, but bog. Whereas you're going to see in a few minutes, it's very different here. The landscape, you see high pines and low pines. Quite a dangerous place to walk to because, as I said, it's just rotted vegetation. When you're cutting, obviously you're going down, and then when you get down so far, you go back up to the top again, and you start going down again, and you step it up, sort of. So you're leaving a hole in front of the turf bank. So if you weren't sure of where you were able to walk in the bog, you could just be walking along what looks like the normal ground and disappear into a 10-foot bog hole. Because the vegetation grows, they will replenish themselves because it is only vegetation, but it takes thousands of years maybe for it to build back up again. And this is what he wants to do now. He wants to leave the bogs idle so as they will replenish themselves. Connemara's there on the left with falls. More of them on the right there up on the hill. I don't know whether they have any falls there or not. You know by the colour of them they're over 2-year-old because they're white or grey. The falls are all brown. The bogs, not just used for the peat, as I said. In rural Ireland years ago, you had to be self-sufficient. There was no cars until again they didn't really become affordable until the late 70s. Unless you had a business or a farm, people in Ireland just didn't have cars, so the only way you could get around was either by bicycle or horse and trap or horse and cart or pony or donkey and cart, whatever way it was, or walk. And so you had to be self-sufficient if you lived out in the sticks, rural Ireland. So everybody kept a cow, everybody kept chickens. We always be a pig bought at the start of the year and then fattened up, slaughtered towards the end of the year for food. Same with goats. Goats kept, provided milk as well, but also bread. And the young then, like sheep and lambs, the young goats would be fattened up and slaughtered towards the end of the year for food as well. Everybody grew their own vegetables and fruit if possible, because they had to. Maybe you couldn't run down to the shop and get a loaf of bread and a pint of milk. It just didn't happen back in rural Ireland. The cow would be milked every morning and every evening by hand, and the milk would be left to settle and the cream would come to the top, and then they take the cream off it and put it into a churn and make their own butter. But when you had the butter made, there was no refrigerators. So if you had an excess of butter, what they used to do with it is wrap it up in sackcloth or hessian. In some cases, maybe put in a little urn and then bury it in the bog. And the bog could preserve it. You could go back to it 6 months, 6 weeks, a year later and take it out of the bog and use it. It was still fresh because there's no oxygen in the bog. And a lot of people, that's the way they kept stuff. Even today, 2019 I think was the last time it was got. People cutting turf today are coming across butter that's buried in the bog. 2019 they found a big lump of it up in the bog in County Cavan. And all that stuff was taken to the National Archaeology Museum in Dublin. And they check it out, test it, whatever. And they estimated that lump in 19 was in the bog for about 130 years. And it was still edible. Now it doesn't look very appetizing, so I don't know who determined it was still edible, but yeah. And that's on display in that museum in Dublin. On anything to find in bogs or in anywhere in Ireland, I saw it put on display in that archaeology museum, which is a brilliant visit if anyone is free time of it. Other artifacts being found with stuff. The monasteries, as I said, was being plundered by Irish people and Celtic, and then by the Vikings. But you know, the Irish raiding the monasteries, running back across the bog, maybe lose some of the loot, maybe buried in the bog. I forget where it was buried or something happened. Didn't go back for it. One of the most famous one of them was what they call the Arda chalice, which was a gold chalice which was studded with gems, and that was found buried in the bog. Loads of other artifacts down through the years. Most of the stuff now has been done by machinery. They've been hit by machines, so their bodies are broke up because they're hit by the machine. But the glacial thing is completely intact. With Quiet Man people on board, haven't we? Just saw the Quiet Man. In that movie at the start of it, where John Wayne has been brought into industry and to stop at the bridge and he sits on the wall reminiscing about what his mother told him about Quiet Morn. That's the bridge there on the left. That's the Quiet Man Bridge. So you're going to get to a better position for a photo. That's it there.
Quiet Man Bridge.
And then you can later see him dragging Maureen O'Hara back across that bridge. The film was made here in Connemara, mostly done out in Con, just off to the right hand side of Connemara. It's actually in County Mayo. But the only other places to record the scenes was there, that bridge, that was the bridge scenes. And the train station, which was in East Galway, over near Corrafin. Everything else was done in Con. But yeah, the bog bodies, so there's 6 of them at the moment. And Some of them, they reckon, were ritual killings. Some of them were murders. And some of them was just people that maybe fell into a bog hole and couldn't get out of it and were never missed or never found.
Wow.
And actually, there was a case a couple of years ago there where a drug gang murdered one of their enemies and buried him in a bog. So he was missing for 4 or 5 years. And somebody digging turf came across the body. Of course, the police were called in and discovered that this guy was murdered 5 years previously. But they were still able to get DNA and everything off him, so they could identify the guys that had murdered him. So if you're thinking of murdering anybody, don't bury them in a bog. Not a good idea. For sale. And in most cases when that happens, the neighbouring farmers will try and buy the land. So they don't generally come up for sale. But sometimes if you do buy a farm like that, you can get what they call turbary rights, which means there's a bog attached to it. So I don't own a turf bank. What happens is someone that owns it and they don't use it will rent it out to a contractor and he'll cut peat from it and then sell it to like a mean that doesn't have a turf bank. And that's how people that don't have a bank gets turf. But again, as I said, if Eamon Ryan as the minister gets his way, none of us will be cutting turf. In a couple of years, it'll all be gone. Which is sad because it's such a big part of rural life in Ireland. And especially in the like of this place, where it's all turf, it's all peat. mountain ranges out here. Mam Turk on the right hand side of you there. Mam Turk Mountains, which is a bit of a cloud on them today. They're not at their full glory. And then as we get over near Kylemore, you have the 12 Bends, or the 12 Pins as some people call them. They're the two mountain ranges here. This area here is called Mam's Cross, or the Angry Mother. Mam's Cross. We normally have great colour in our hedgerows throughout the year. It's nearly all green now. There's a green bush there. You see it. It's gorse. You see it. Whin bush, they call it. And that starts from about February to get a lovely yellow flower. And it blooms all the way through till about the end of May. It starts to die off. Group of mammals. And that provides lovely yellow colouring in the hedges, and even in the fields, because the gorse grows everywhere. You see it fading off the bits of yellow on some of them there. It looks really lovely, but you don't smell it because it's a very spiny plant. It's like cactus. It's like rabbit to smell it. You won't have a sore nose and a sore hand. But when that dies off, we have the rhododendrons starting to bloom. And they're sort of in full bloom at the moment. Out here, well anywhere really out the west of Ireland, rhododendrons are considered a weed, a nuisance plant. Because they grow everywhere, out of rocks, out of fields, out of hedges. They cut them back and they pull them out, but they keep coming back. That's why they're considered invasive. They're in bloom then from about May, June and July, and then they'll start to die off with the fuchsia. But for this year, I don't know why, the fuchsia is very early because it's out already and it's in bloom. Normally the fuchsia comes in around the end of June, July, and stays then until September, October. And that's that little red droopy flower. You see it along the hedgerow here. But at the moment we have the rhododendrons and the fuchsia blooming. Provides our hedgerow with good colour throughout the year. Lots of little lakes, as you can see, so it's another part of Ireland that's a haven for people who want to go fishing. All those lakes are freshwater lakes, but in order to fish in them you need a licence. Because the stocks will be cleaned out of them. Most people fish for sport. They might keep one or two, but in most cases they just photograph them or weigh them, especially to get a big one and then throw it back in. But some markets, the European markets opened up and more East Europeans started coming from Poland and Latvia and places like that. family had a textile business there, but Mitchell studied and went on to become a doctor, and he was a doctor in London. He was involved with the textile business with the family for a while in Manchester, but he went on to London then, and then he met a girl down there and fell in love and got married, a girl called Margaret. And they came to Ireland for their honeymoon, and they were touring around Connemara, and Margaret fell completely in love with Connemara. And said this is where she wanted to live. So, but anyway, they went back to London and they had family, but in the mid-1860s, he was left a large inheritance from his father. His father passed away in the textile business.
Yeah.
So he came back to Connemara and he bought up a load of land here, something like 15,000 acres. He became a landlord. And he decided to build a castle for the love of his life. So no pressure on the rest of you guys. He done this because he loved her so much. It took 100 men 4 years to build it. Started in 1867. It's got 70 rooms and it's over 40,000 square feet. And when it was finished, they all moved into it. They had 9 children. They all lived very happily in it. But they went off on a family holiday to Egypt. He became a sort of a prime minister, or not a prime minister, an MP, a member of parliament. He was flying over and back to England to attend meetings and stuff like that. So Margaret really became the landlady here. She was a very good landlady, very good with the locals. They built a 7-acre walled Victorian garden, and they put in Victorian greenhouses. And they were able to grow some very exotic fruit and veggies here through that greenhouse and through the gardens here. Again, self-sufficient because of where it is, because there's nothing around it. So they had to be sort of self-sufficient. They even had their own fire service there. They had a fire at one time which done a lot of damage to them. It took so long for the fire service to get out to them. A lot of the damage was done, so he set up his own fire service. But anyway, they went off on that family holiday, and when on a holiday she contracted a disease which ended up killing her. She died back here. And because she loved this area so much, he decided to build a mausoleum and have her interred in it. So her body was temporarily placed until he built the mausoleum. And when the mausoleum was finished, Margaret's body was moved into it in Kylemore. The family had grown up, moved away sort of, so Mitchell was there on his own, and he wanted to do something to honour Margaret, honour her name, so he decided to build a church. And I reckon the church is a replica of St. Paul's Cathedral, I think it is in Norwich. And it's a small little church. It's got serious acoustics in it, so it's very popular with choirs and travelling around Ireland and visit Kylemore. They normally go down and sing in it because of the acoustics. And it's got the 4 marbles of Ireland on all the pillars in the church. It's worth a visit to go down and see it. It's a beautiful little church. So the church was built, and he was getting a bit fed up there on his own, such a big place and nothing to do, so he decided to leave it. And he went back to Manchester and he got involved again in the textile business, the family business. And in 1909 he decided to sell it. And it was sold to the Duke and Duchess of Manchester. It was actually bought by her father as a wedding present for them. And they became the new owners of Kylemore Castle. There's loads of turf footed there on the left, you see that?
Oh, yeah.
But he had a problem. He was fond of drink and he was fond of gambling. And so he used to partake in a lot of gambling and drinking. And one, in 1919, he was involved in a high stakes card game and he ran out of cash. And he decided to put the deeds of the castle on the table as collateral. And you can imagine what happened. He lost. Imagine that one, going home and telling your wife, honey, we have to move, I've just lost her. make it worse, it was the home that her daddy had bought them. But that's what happened. So they had to move. The new owner didn't want it, so he put it up for sale straight away. And in 1920 it was bought by a group of nuns, Benedictine nuns. They had a convent in Ypres in Belgium, but during World War I they were persecuted, so they fled from Belgium and had a little convent then in Waterford, down in the southeast of Ireland. But when they seen Kylemore was for sale, they decided to try and get a mortgage and buy it. And in 1920 were successful, and they became the new owners of Kylemore Castle. And that's when it changed from being Kylemore Castle to Kylemore Abbey, because the nuns had moved into it and brought religion into it. So it's now called Kylemore Abbey. The Benedictine nuns was a very hard-working community of nuns. And the first thing they done was set about getting the gardens restored, because the Duke and Duchess, Mrs. Margaret, had passed away. The gardens were neglected, so they were gone very much overgrown, and the greenhouses had been damaged. So they set about restoring the garden to its glory. They had one of the greenhouses done, and so they were able to grow loads more fruit and veg, and some exotic stuff. And out of that then they were able to make nice things like tarts and cakes and different things. And used to sell that locally around the area in order to try and make money and pay for the upkeep of the abbey. That still goes on today, and today you will see nuns driving out and in little delivery vans. They still do their own deliveries here. They opened up a boarding school for girls, and it became very exclusive sort of, because there was girls from all over the world brought here to be taught because of where it is. It was a very safe place to send your daughter to be educated. No boys, no pubs, no nightclubs, no nothing around the area, so it was very safe. And over the other side of Connemara here is another castle called Ballynahinch, and that was owned by an Indian family, and so they had a lot of connections in India. There was a lot of Indian girls sent here to be educated. Some of them could say river princesses. So it became very well known and well respected school. A lot of people were stopping to take photographs of it because it was such a nice place, and it gave the nuns the idea of opening it up as a tourist attraction, which again was to be used to get more money to help pay off their mortgage. So by 1935 they had their mortgage paid off. To celebrate the fact, they got a statue of the Sacred Heart, and they brought it halfway up the mountain on the back of a donkey and placed it on a plinth, just to celebrate the fact that they'd paid off their mortgage. The tourist thing grew and grew. The school was going well. The little industries they had going with making stuff, also was going very well. But the nuns themselves were getting old. Weren't able to do it as much. They were getting hard to attract younger girls in to join the nuns. And in 2009 they decided to franchise out the tourism side of it. A group of local businessmen took it over, signed a 5-year lease on it, and they ran it for 5 years. But things changed then. They signed that in 2009 because they said it was getting too much for the nuns to handle everything on their own. In 2010, only 12 girls enrolled for the school, so they decided to close it. So when that term ended in 2011, the educational side of the abbey finished, which gave the nuns more time. And so they started making more produce like fudges, ice cream and dry mix, as in, you know, you can buy a cake mix, just bring it home and add water to it or whatever. So they were adding more to their bits and pieces of the home industries. In 2014, the lease was up from the businessmen, and they decided to take the tourism side of it back themselves. And they've appointed a manager to run it for them. And that's the way it works today. They still have control of it now themselves. But they have a manager there managing it for them. A couple of different managers actually. And then in 2016, they were asked about opening it up as an educational facility again by an educational facility from the US. And while they were interested, they didn't have the staff. They were still getting it hard to attract girls in to join the nuns. So they kind of declined, but then a deal was done between that facility and the nuns, where they agreed to build an accommodation block at the back of the abbey. And professors from the college was going to come over and live in the area and teach. So the nuns had nothing to do with the teaching, it was their own professors who was going to do that. And that college was Notre Dame College in the US. So it's back operational. All that was done and ready in 2018. So it opened again in 2018 as an educational facility ran by Notre Dame. So students come and they spend semesters here, whether that's 6 months or 12 months, whatever. They live on the accommodation block at the back of the abbey, and their own professors teach them. So it's flying again. They opened a couple of more rooms that time up in a new part of an exhibition. They have you ever seen talking for pictures? Pictures that talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's just common. The first one I saw was in Smithings, Kilkenny, but they introduced one that time in 2018 and before it opened it. When you go through it, you'll see it in the abbey. On the doorway, they have one side of it, have a long photograph of Mitchell Henry, and on the other side of the doorway, they have a photo of his wife, Margaret. The two pictures talk to each other. You see them go over at each other, and Margaret is telling him about her day in the abbey, and he's telling her about his day in Parliament. And so it's quite. It's a lovely thing to sit down and just look at it and listen to them talking, just like they're just talking to each other. It's a really clever thing. As I said, I've only seen it here and in Smithings. I think it's a fabulous thing. So you can see that there's a chair there as well. If you sit down into the chair, you have Mitchell talking in your ear from the back of the chair, a speaker at the back of the chair. And those were added in 2018 to the other 5 rooms.
benefited from all we enjoy here in Kylemore.
And they will benefit for years to come.
These cane poles are really
I
tall.
don't know, it's like 15 foot or something. Look at the side,
I'm just gonna go over here.
His boots fit.
I think it's the same thing.
Returning from Glenlo Abbey back to our estate.
Power poles.
Is the reflectors on the road. Call them cat's eyes. The carriageways on Connemara, sometimes you're hitting one or both. So the bang off the wheels. That's Dyna Valley Road there on the right we came up. Those cat's eyes were invented by an Englishman. Home on foggy night, couldn't see where he was going really, but the cat crossed in front of him. You could see the cat's eyes. And I came up with the idea of making reflectors to reflect the cat's eyes. That's what he called them. Had the cat been walking away from him, he probably would have invented the pencil bearer. Down to the ground. In Europe, in Norway, and stuff like that. It says the depth, where salt water meets seawater, or sorry, where salt water meets fresh water. But they reckon that up there is somewhere around 300 meters deep.
There's fish farms.
I'm going to give you a photo up here for a few minutes.
So this here is the mussel farms. All those little black things you see in the water. That's where they have mussels down there. They farm them.
Called them drills, but Trevelyan was ruling at the time. But the famines called them lazy beds. Said they were lazy beds for a lazy race. You'll also see walls going along here, dry stone walls to go up the mountain. Go across the mountain.
Yeah.
No real purpose. There's one there on the right, straight up. Another big one down there. And then there's loads of them going up and going across. You're going to see loads more of them tomorrow. We're heading south to the Burn. And they're what's called famine walls. Just before the famine hit, that built workhouses. Talk about the famine tomorrow, but it'll all blend in then. But the workhouses, when people were sent into them, the men were sent out to build walls. Sometimes there was the walls around the estates, which were cement walls. They were cemented stones. And they were usually 8 or 10 foot high. And they went all the way around the estates. Which, as I said before, could be 10 or 15 or 20,000 acres. So you can imagine how long the walls were. And the men sent out to spend those, or to build those walls, got a penny a week to build them. So they're called the penny walls. But then when there wasn't enough of penny walls to be built because there was so many people going into the workhouses, in order to get the men something to do and get them out of the workhouse during the day, they told them to go out here into the mountains and just build walls. So they're dry stone walls that you're looking at there. They were built by men in the workhouse. It was in the workhouse, but had nothing else to do just to get them out of the workhouse. That's why we call them famine walls. There's loads of them all around here. And tomorrow again, as I said, when you go down into the garden, you see a lot. One really long one here on the left hand side. All the way up to the very top of the mountain. No purpose because it's commonage. There's no need to build a wall there. It's just to get the men out of the workhouse.
Dinner on the Orient Express tonight.
Come on, just follow me.
We'll follow him. Yes. Yeah, of course. Don't follow us. We don't know what we're doing.
Hey, look at a boat out there. Looks like a head boat. You go first. Go.